Critters. Hello, hello, hello. I am Claire Jones, your devoted host of the Sacred Reading CR podcast, where we discuss and examine Critical Role episodes, plot lines, characters, and players through the lens of sacred reading practices. So this particular episode is about Campaign 1, Episode 10, Part 2. And joining me today is Alyssa. And I put an icebreaker again for today. And today it is, what is your most used emoji?
Right now, let's see. It is the blushing smile face.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why, but currently that's my favorite.
I've been really liking the peace sign and the hearts, like peace and love signing off on everything. Like, I just feel like when I'm communicating with people, it like softens whatever I'm saying. It's like, you suck, peace and love.
Yeah, I think that's probably similar lines. It's I don't know, a softer smiley face, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, emojis fascinate me just because they can be used for so many different things and so many different contexts. And like one emoji in one context is like totally different in another context.
Yeah, they're a language all their own. One that my brother speaks better than I do.
Well, I mean, that's how generations go, right?
Fair enough.
All right, well, please join us as we embark on this adventure in storytelling and analysis and self-reflection in order to deepen our understanding of ourselves and the world around us. So as always, we love hearing from you guys as well. So please comment, like, share, and subscribe. Ready? All right, let's dive in. All right, so Vox Machina, they have just settled into a side cave in an enormous underground cavern that contains a large lake with an island at the center of it. On this island is a city of mind flayers who are currently under the influence of Kavarn, an unknown aberration who is wielding one of the horns of Orcus. They have come to stop Kavarn, but want to take a long rest first after fighting their way through two of these side caverns that they've found. Before they rest, though, Keyleth asks if Tiberius has heard back from his brother, to whom he had sent a magic message to ask if he knows anything about Kavarn. His brother does reply, saying that he knows of the Dark Realm, where Kavarn is presumably from, but has not heard anything about Kavarn himself. Grog starts digging a ditch in the sand while they discuss what to do next, and Keyleth asks Pike if she wants to assist her in scrying on Kavarn. Tiberius questions whether they should do it or not in case they alert Kavarn to their exact whereabouts, but she argues that Kavarn already knows where they are since he spoke to them through the Durgar Queen's body previously. Grog breaks the tension by pretending to row a boat in the ditch that he dug to imitate Keyleth when she mimed it earlier as her earth elemental form. Keyleth casts scrying spell and focuses specifically on the Horn of Orcus using Pike's vision as guidance. She sees that the central temple in the city is open on top, and on the open roof is a gold and brass structure holding a spiral contraption of sorts that is hanging above a pool, swirling with energy and containing a cluster of interconnected brains. Always fun to find. Presumably the elder brain hive mind that links all of the mind flayers together. The contraption also seems to be caging in the elder brain, which seems to be how Kavarn has taken control of it. Also surrounding the elder brain around the edges of the room are other cages holding a variety of mutated creatures similar to the stitched together monstrosities that they had fought previously after Kavarn had unleashed them in the tunnels leading to the city. She also sees the Horn of Orcus wielded by a fleshy but armored spherical creature with one large eye in addition to multiple others attached by stalks. Kavarn sees Keyleth scrying on him and speaks to her, inviting her to join him in his home before he attacks her mentally. She takes damage and is thrust out of the spell just as Vax slaps her to break her from the scrying trance. She gets pissed at Vax for slapping her. Understandably, then tells the group that Kavarn is a beholder, having recognized the type of creature he is. Tiberius freaks the fuck out and says that K'varn will most likely kill all of them. She points out the dull green glow that they see from the side cave that indicates the top of the temple, and Vex asks if it's possible to break the cage surrounding the elder brain from afar so that K'varn has to fight the mind flayers instead of them. Grog interrupts to ask what a beholder even is, as Tiberius writes out another magic message to his brother. It is unclear as to whether it was sent or not. I couldn't catch.
I don't know. I don't think so. I think that was kind of ignored.
Yeah, they were all kind of talking over each other at this point, so
yeah,
it's unclear. But Keyleth does explain that each of K'varn's eye stalks has a different magical ability, as beholders do. Percy explains that their real goal is to free the Elder Brain so that they can free the Mind Flayers, who they believe will attack K'varn along with them. He gets very excited about the acidic vial of liquid they collected along the way, and they discuss other ways to weaken the metal structure. Clarota has withdrawn from the group, looking visibly disturbed after learning this information, and he expresses to them that they are at great danger, with K'varn not only being a beholder, but also wielding the Horn of Orcus. He also explains that the temple is magically protected and that the metal structure seems to be new, and so it may potentially not be protected like the rest of the building is, but big question mark there. Kima says that they do have the element of surprise and should carefully think about how to take control of the battlefield. Pike says she does have divine intervention, but they put that on hold for later. They go back to the idea of weakening the metal structure and discuss that some more, including talk about doing a flyby reconnaissance mission to gather more information. Part of the group gets into the boat. The other part gets onto the magic carpet that Percy has camouflaged with the skin that they took from one of the cave creatures. I don't remember the name of the cave creature, but they killed it and skinned it.
I think it was a cloaker.
Cloaker, yes, there we go. I was like, it was the rock one.
The thing.
The thing. They roll high on stealth and manage to land on the beach of the island, safely seeing some small buildings, cliffs, and fungal trees at the edge of the beach. And Clarota tells them that any creatures lurking in the forest will probably be under the influence of K'varn too, and warns them about the spore creatures that roam the forest. That sounds fun. Grog offers him a mug of ale, and Clarota pours it out on the ground, offending Grog to no end. Vax goes and inspects the buildings closest to them, and Percy and Keyleth do some checks to look around while they all follow Vax. There seems to be a pit built into the center of the structures that is covered in splashes of crimson, always a good sign, and bones, always a good sign, with a very large campsite tucked into the side of the pit. The fire still has embers, and there is a massive pile of furs. They suddenly hear the rumble of very large footsteps coming towards them and turn to see a giant dragging a large club behind it, who then asks, "Who goes there?" into the dark, not seeing them, but senses their presence. Vex rolls an insight check to see if they can befriend the giant, but it seems that it is hungry, malicious, and in the thrill of the hunt now. So they try to shrink back into the darkness, but that's where they break for the end of the episode. So what do we think about this short second half?
I mean, it's another of their paralysis in choice. They've got options and they just talk about them until somebody takes charge, which is kind of how this is going to keep going. But even the choices that they try to make in order to mitigate that are argued about by half the party, and that frustrates me to no end.
Yeah.
And I'm not a rules lawyer by any means, really not. But this whole scrying situation bugs me so much because that's not how it works at all.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a homebrew element that I think Matt put in for because this is her first time scrying.
I don't think it's her first, but it's up there.
Yeah.
It's not something that she's done often.
Yeah, it's one of those spells that I can tell that Matt gets more and more strict on over time. As the campaigns go on, there are certain spell rule judgments that he makes earlier on that are a lot more lax than they are
Right, that don't
later
stick
on.
around. I think getting to see the whole tunneling into where Kavarn is a big one of those,
Yeah.
instead of just seeing Kavarn. But like if somebody were to scry on an object, that person wouldn't be able to track back to where the scry was coming from. That's an explicit part of the spell. So I don't know. It just one more thing that Tiberius drives me crazy about. And like I can get behind homebrewed spells and they don't bother me in most of this campaign. It is this one specific instance where the homebrew is weaponized to take away a player's agency or fun that bothers me.
Whose agency is it taken away, do you think?
Well, I guess it's more that Orion is so loud and obstinate about his opinion that it makes it feel like it's no longer a choice.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to like these metaphors and these stories and these themes that we've been talking about, I've been noticing this theme around panicking.
Yes.
Because they were all just kind of like calmly discussing their plan until they found out that it was a beholder. Like they were still joking around. They were still like Grog was still doing his thing. And then they all learned that it's beholder and it's like that scratch on the record, like, what? Wait a minute. And then panic ensues.
Yeah. I do wonder how much of that was player panic and how much of that was character panic.
That's my question, because no one else played dumb on what a beholder was except for Grog/Travis.
And I think that's because Travis actually didn't know.
Exactly. And so I'd be really interested to see, like, because he didn't even make Keyleth roll to identify it as a beholder.
Well, and he might have if she hadn't identified it immediately out of the scry. Like if she had come back and said, like, said I try to communicate, and maybe there would have been a roll. But because she's came back and said Kavarn is a beholder, he doesn't want to go back and like retroactively change that.
I mean, this is also an instance of him being softer earlier on than he is later on in the campaigns.
Yeah.
And it's just fascinating that their panic usually devolves into action for them. Like that is it can be a blessing and a curse sometimes. When panic occurs,
it goes both ways.
Action sometimes is the right answer, sometimes it's not the right answer.
Yeah, there's definitely instances where it does not work in their favor, but at least they're doing something.
Yeah, and like Orion's immediate reaction to the description of Kavarn and the rest of the group shushing him like while she's in the middle of the scry, I thought was a super important moment. And he also rolled his eyes after that whole argument with Keyleth about whether to do the scrying spell or not.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that we really see here is the difference between Orion and everybody else. But I mean, the one that's brought up most often is Orion and Travis, because Travis does crazy things, but he does them in ways that are fun for everybody at the table, not just for himself. But I think the one that caught my eye here was Liam, because he knows what a beholder is. He knows the same things that Orion does, but his reaction is more in character. It's calmer and it's not disrupting everybody else. But it's also actionable. Like he's giving them options and bringing the party into what he knows instead of just involving himself. And I think
good.
Yeah, I think that seeing the difference between Orion and Liam really highlighted what I like about the way Liam plays.
Yeah.
which is even when he has this vast amount of knowledge, which he does. He's a DM. He's played for forever.
Yeah.
He doesn't play it in such a way where he's the one that knows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'd also love to point out the contrast between Sam and Orion in this instance, too, because Sam is notorious for providing constructive criticism to their planning.
Yes.
Like every strategy they come up with, every plan they come up with, every time they're brainstorming, he is always the one to jump in and be like, well, what if this goes wrong? What if that goes wrong? What if this doesn't work? What if that doesn't work? And he's like constantly poking holes in plans and pointing out weaknesses in plans. Like that's just what Sam does, no matter what character he plays.
Yes.
He does this in every campaign. And over the years, I'm like, sometimes I get annoyed at it. Sometimes I agree with him and being like, this is a stupid plan, guy. But it's helpful and necessary in a way that Orion's isn't.
Yes.
Because it's giving constructive criticism more so than like unconstructive panic shouting.
Yeah, I'd much rather work towards a solution than you just tell me it's not going to work. And I think that's what Sam does, is he works towards an actual answer.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny because we've been talking about intergroup cohesion up until this point, and then panic hits, and then it's like everyone's like splintering off.
And I think that's so interesting because it's kind of opposite of what happens later in the campaigns, where the panic brings them together.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting to see some of these early campaign dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
I think, Matt is finding his footing as a DM in front of a camera, which is totally fair. And the group is finding their footing as a group and not as, friends at home.
Mm-hmm.
They're figuring out what it means to tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's super apparent in this episode that they're still working on that.
Yeah.
It didn't click within the first couple episodes. It took them some time.
Yeah. Yeah. Like they're still messy. Like even today, they're still messy.
Oh, yeah.
But it's more like organized chaos nowadays. Like they've built in space for the chaos they know is going to happen.
Yeah. It's chaos, but in a comfortable way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's chaos, but it's not in the disruptive way that brings the story to a halt. It's in a way that they know to expect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. It's super interesting. So what kind of personal experiences are coming to mind for us?
I mean, so group projects.
Yeah, talk about chaos, right?
I took a class in college that was basically a semester-long group project with people I had never met before. And I am distinctly reminded of trying to get everybody to work together at all on that project. So we all had different approaches. We all had different expectations. It did not go well. And I'm just reminded of the chaos and the frustration that came with trying to corral everybody into some semblance of cohesion and some semblance of a plan in time to do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, herding cats, right? That's what group projects probably are.
Yeah.
Organized chaos. My dog's throwing around a toy behind me. Don't mind that.
Yeah.
But yeah, when it comes to personal experiences for me, I think about my panic reactions. Because I do also have a tendency to rush into action when I'm in a panic state. I acknowledge that about myself, and I know that it has helped me and hindered me over the years. And lately, I've been trying to have a more patient panic response and being like, all right, let's actually like take a step back, consider what's going on before we make emotional reactions to what's going on. Because I've found myself get exhausted by just doing these actions for the sake of doing actions instead of actually putting my energy towards what's actually going to move me forward.
Fair enough.
Like, I always think back to this one time. It was the first car crash that I had ever witnessed.
Mm.
I was like 13 or so, 12, something like that. And I was driving with my mom in the car, and it happened like behind us. And so we heard it, but we didn't see it. And my mom instantly went into panic mode too. And she was like, this is it. Because we had just gotten cell phones at that point. Like, cell phones were new to us at this point in time. And we had those like Nokia bricks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so she never kept it on. Like, she just had it on her, because like that's how moms treated cell phones back in the day. And she just like basically threw this Nokia brick at me and like was like, fix this, and like ran out of the car and like went to go help the people who had crashed. And I was like, and like by the time I got to the 911 operator, like she was like, all right, you need to breathe. Like, you need to like slow your roll. And I was like, I'm only 14.
Yeah, I mean, that also illustrates how other people's panic makes you panic, and it just devolves to the point where nobody's functional.
Yeah. The operator was like, do we need an ambulance? Like, tell me what's going on here. And I was like, I don't know. I was like, there might be blood, there might not be blood. I don't know.
I just have the phone.
Yeah, I was given the phone and I was given a task and I'm completing the task.
I was not prepared for anything outside of that task.
Yeah. I feel like that's how Orion treats those magic messages of his.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like screaming into the void.
And Google. I think he treats them like Google. Like, all of my problems will be solved if I can just ask Google instead of figuring it out myself. Like, those homework questions in college that you couldn't figure out, so you just put them in Google and hope that somebody's already done it. Yeah. That's the impression I get from those messages.
Pretty much. All right. Well, what actions are we being called to take as a result?
I think the biggest thing I took away was from Grog, where he's deliberately using his skills, whatever they are, to lighten the situation and to, entertain the people that are around him and to try to diffuse some of the panic so that people can approach things logically. He knows he's not the smartest. He knows he's not the guy who's going to come up with all of the plans necessarily, but he knows that he can help in a different way. And so I think the thing that I'm taking from it is sometimes the best thing you can do is step back and give people the chance to look at something else and the chance to breathe, and make sure that they do and give that kind of support. And I really liked how Travis and Grog were in this episode, just trying to give people the space to breathe and to think and to move forward with a better plan because they had that kind of time.
Yeah, I absolutely love that, because you don't really get very far when you're panicking. You need to step back. You need to take the bigger picture view, and you need those kind of like pattern disruptors like Grog is. He is a pattern disruptor. He's the one that's like, well, how can I look at this in a funny way? And like even Sam Escalon does that sometimes. And I think those are, like when you're thinking about having a group project, you don't go like, I want Grog on my group.
Right. You don't want the comedian because they don't get anything done, but sometimes that's exactly what you need.
I absolutely love that. Yeah, I mean, the same with me with my panic reaction and just being like, all right, because sometimes when people talk about the silver lining, they think about the like, positive silver lining. Like, what is the like elevated cerebral silver lining to the situation? Where really the silver lining can often be a joke. It can be the funny part of the situation. It can be the humorous element that's at play here, or it can be the like dark humorous element that's at play.
Mhm.
We see that a lot nowadays, especially with the the Zoomer generation. Like their dark humor is off the charts.
Yes. Yes, it is.
And I think that that's a worthwhile response to panic. Like it's not be positive or panic. It's like you could panic or laugh at it. You could panic or have a different response, a different nuanced response somehow, some way.
Yeah. And it's not so much about derailing the situation as it is about derailing the panic. Like,
totally. Exactly.
That, a little bit of a laugh goes a long way because it disrupts you just enough to break that cycle of panic.
I mean, it's motion regulation at the end of the day. And like having that foresight, or at least that break from the situation to choose your emotional response. It's like, do I actually want to panic in this situation, or do I want to have a, better response, more enjoyable response than panic?
Yeah, I like that.
All right. Well, anything you want to add before we wrap up?
I don't think so.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for the next one. I'm excited for the next few ones because shit goes a little sideways.
Yeah, they're definitely interesting ones to talk through.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And per usual, this is powerful stuff that we're talking about. I mean, like, who knew that we could get so much out of 43 minutes of the second half of this stuff? All right. Well, audience, we definitely encourage you to share your own thoughts and feelings and stories and insights with us as well. We'd love to know how Critical Role has impacted you in your own lives. And special thanks to Alyssa for joining me on this episode. It's been a pleasure, per usual.
Oh, yeah. Anytime. I had fun.
Awesome. So next time we'll be discussing Campaign 1, Episode 11, Part 1. And joining me will be Petal again. And as always, I'm looking for more co-hosts and guests. So if you're interested in coming on the series and sharing your own insights and thoughts and stories, please reach out to me via email or on Tumblr. I can't wait to chat with all of you. In the meantime, please comment, like, and subscribe. Follow us on Tumblr at Sacred Reading CR for all the juicy updates. And until next time, may all beings be free, or may all beings be peaceful. May all beings be free. And always, always, always remember to love each other. Take care, guys.
See ya.